The sky above Talos Prime burned red. G1 stood at the observation window of the orbital command station and watched another defense satellite explode into silence. She had been watching things explode for 3 weeks now. First the outer colonies, then the mining stations, then the agricultural worlds. Now they were dying here, at the capital itself. Ambassador, we need your decision. The voice belonged to Hyesu, the military commander, who had aged 10 years in the past month. Her uniform was crisp, but her eyes were hollow. We have maybe 48 hours before they breach the inner defense grid. Jiwan turned away from the window. The command center buzzed with desperate activity. Officers shouted coordinates. Screens displayed red tactical markers spreading like infection across the star charts. Every red marker was a world where billions had lived. Past tense. The Velkrath swarm did not take prisoners. They consumed everything. How many ships do we have left? Jiwan asked, though she already knew the answer. 214, Hyesu said. We started with 8,000. 200 ships against a force that had devoured half the Confederation in less than a month. Jiwan had sent diplomatic missions to every known civilization. She had begged for help from the Thressen Empire, the Olmart Collective, even the isolationist Pinnacle Worlds. Every response was the same. No, the swarm had never been defeated. To fight them was to die. Better to fortify their own borders and hope the swarm moved on. Hope. What a useless word. What about the research team? G1 asked. Minho's project? Hisu's expression flickered with something that might have been surprise or might have been pity. You want to talk about ancient star charts now? I want to talk about options. Minho entered the command center as if summoned by his name. The chief science officer looked like he had not slept in days, which was probably true. He carried a datapad clutched against his chest like a shield. I found something, Minho said without preamble, in the old archives. Before the Confederation existed, before current galactic civilization, there were other species. Most went extinct. But there are records of one that might have survived. Jiwan felt a spark of something dangerous. Hope again, trying to kill her with its persistence. Tell me. Minho activated a holographic display. An ancient star map materialized above the conference table, showing a region of space marked in faded red, the dead sector, 1,200 light-years from here. 3,000 years ago, it was inhabited by a species called humans. They had dozens of worlds, advanced technology, and a population in the hundreds of billions. Had, Hisu said. Past tense. The records say they went silent after a series of civil wars, Minho continued. Other civilizations tried to make contact over the centuries, but no one ever received a response. Eventually, everyone assumed they destroyed themselves. The sector was declared dead space and removed from navigation charts. Jiwan stared at the hologram. The dead sector sat like a wound in the fabric of known space, dark and empty. Why are you telling me about extinct aliens? Because they might not be extinct, Minho said. He manipulated the display, pulling up fragments of ancient transmissions. These are the last broadcasts detected from the human worlds before they went silent. They are not distress calls. They are war reports, tactical data, casualty figures, but they never say they were losing. They just say they were fighting. Fighting who? Hisu asked. Themselves. Each other. Rogue artificial intelligences. Genetic plagues. Reality warping experiments gone wrong. The records are fragmented, but the pattern is clear. They did not have one war. They had dozens, hundreds, all at once. For centuries. Minho looked up from his datapad. Most species would have gone extinct. But what if they adapted instead? What if they are still there, and they simply stopped talking to the outside galaxy? The command center had gone quiet. Every officer in the room was listening now. G1 could see it in their faces. The same desperate hope that was burning in her own chest. You want to send a message to a dead sector based on 3,000-year-old rumors? Hisu said flatly. I want to try everything before we die, G1 replied. Another explosion lit up the observation window. Closer this time, the swarm was tightening its grip. Yesu looked at the star map, then at G1. Even if they exist, even if they receive the message, why would they help? They have been isolating themselves for 3,000 years. Because if the swarm finishes with us, it will keep spreading, G1 said. Eventually, it will reach the dead sector. If humans are alive out there, if they are still fighting their own wars, they will not want a new enemy. Minho nodded eagerly. I can modify our emergency broadcast array to punch a signal into the dead sector. It will take all our remaining power reserves, but it is possible. Do it, Jiwan said. Hyesu stepped closer, lowering her voice. And if they answer? If something actually comes out of that dead space after 3,000 years? We have no idea what we would be inviting here. Jiwan looked out at the burning sky, at the red tactical markers consuming her civilization, at the 200 ships that were all that remained of their once mighty fleet. We are already dying, she said quietly. At least this way we die trying. The message was sent 6 hours later. Minho had encoded it with every translation matrix they possessed, every linguistic key, every mathematical constant that might serve as common ground with an alien intelligence. The message was simple: we are dying. The Velkrath swarm is destroying us. We need help. These are our coordinates. The transmission burned through the communication array with such intensity that 3 backup generators failed. The beam of concentrated radio waves, quantum entanglement signals, and gravitational pulses shot across 1,200 light-years of empty space toward a sector that had not answered anyone in 3 millennia. Then they waited. The swarm did not wait. They pressed their attack with mindless efficiency. The inner defense grid fell on the second day. Evacuation ships launched from Talus Prime in a desperate stream, carrying what little remained of the Confederation government. Jiwan stayed in orbit with Hyesu and the last defense fleet, 60 ships now. The rest had been destroyed, covering the evacuations. No response from the dead sector, Minho reported for the 100th time. He was still at his station, still monitoring the sensors, still hoping. They are not coming, Hyesu said. She sat in the commander's chair with the posture of someone who had already accepted death. It was a good idea, but they are not coming. Jiwan wanted to argue, but the words died in her throat. The observation window showed swarm bioships swarming toward them like insects, like the plague they were. Organic vessels grown from harvested genetic material, each one carrying thousands of Velkrath drones. Beautiful in a horrifying way, efficient, unstoppable. Fleet, prepare for final engagement, Hyesu ordered. Her voice did not shake. Protect the evacuation ships as long as possible. The 60 remaining ships moved into formation. Jiwan watched them go, small points of light against the massive dark shapes of the swarm. So few. So impossibly few. Minho's console erupted in alarm. What is that? He shouted. Something just entered the system. Hyperspace rupture at the edge of sensor range. Massive energy signature. It is not swarm. Every screen in the command center pivoted to the sensor data. Jiwan felt her heart hammering as the computer tried to process what it was detecting. A ship. No, not a ship. A fortress. A leviathan of metal and purpose emerging from hyperspace with the slow inevitability of an avalanche. It was ancient and scarred, its hull bearing marks from weapons that should not exist. Energy readings spiked off every scale. Receiving transmission, the communications officer said, her voice shaking. Static filled the command center, then words in perfect Confederation standard, spoken in a voice that carried no warmth, no comfort, only cold statement of fact. We received your distress call. We are humanity. We do not do rescues. We do exterminations. Jiwan stared at the massive ship on the screen and realized what they had done. They had not called for help. They had opened a door that had been sealed for 3,000 years. And something had answered. The human warship hung in space like a monument to violence. Jiwan could not stop staring at it. Every surface was scarred with weapons fire. Some of the damage looked recent. Some looked centuries old. The ship had been at war for so long that repair and destruction had merged into a single continuous state. They are requesting permission to dock, the communications officer said. No, wait, they are not requesting. They are informing us that someone is coming aboard. How? Hyesu demanded. We did not authorize any docking protocols. They did not use docking protocols. Before anyone could respond, 3 figures materialized on the command deck. Not beamed, not transported through any technology the Confederation understood. They simply appeared between one heartbeat and the next, as if reality had briefly forgotten they were not supposed to be there. The lead figure was a man. Human, Jiwan assumed, though she had only seen humans in ancient historical archives. He was tall, wearing armor that looked both primitive and impossibly advanced. His face was hard angles and tired eyes. When he looked at Jiwan, she felt like she was being assessed by a machine. I am Captain Daehyun of the warship Endless Vigil, he said. His voice was the same one from the transmission. Cold, efficient. You sent a distress call. We need to know everything about the enemy. Yisu stepped forward, her hand moving toward her sidearm. You materialized on a military command deck without authorization. That is an act of war. Daehyun glanced at her. Just a glance, nothing more, but Yisu froze. Ji-won saw it happen. The military commander, who had faced the swarm without flinching, stopped moving because of a look. You do not want war with us, Daehyun said simply. You want war with them. Show me the enemy. The woman behind Daehyun spoke. She was shorter, with dark hair pulled back severely. I am Sumin, tactical officer. We need tactical data. Fleet compositions, swarm attack patterns, biological analysis, star charts of affected systems. Everything. Now. Minho stepped forward nervously. I am the science officer. I can provide that data, but it will take time to compile. You do not have time, said the third human. He was broader than the others, built like a fortress. I am Young-ho. Your defensive grid is collapsing. You have 6 hours before the swarm reaches this station. Probably less, Jawan found her voice. You came from 1,200 light-years away. You received our message and arrived in less than 3 weeks. How is that possible? We were already moving when we received your call, Daehyun said. We have listening posts on the edge of the dead sector. They monitor all transmissions from outside. When you broadcast your distress signal, we were only 400 light-years away. Why were you 400 light-years from home? Hisu asked. Daehyun looked at her again. We are always 400 light-years from home. Or 800? Or 1,200. We stopped having a home a long time ago. We have ships. We have war. That is enough. Sumin moved to one of the command consoles. Her fingers danced across controls she should not have understood, accessing systems that were supposed to be encrypted. This tactical data is insufficient, she said. Where are the biological samples? Genetic analysis? Psychological warfare assessments? Psychological warfare? Minho echoed. They are insects. They do not have psychology. Everything has psychology, Sumin said. Everything can be frightened. Everything can be broken. You just have not tried hard enough. Ji-won felt cold spread through her chest. These were the saviors she had called. These cold, efficient machines wearing human faces? We need to see the swarm directly, Daehyun said. Take us to the nearest engagement. The nearest engagement is 3 light minutes from here, Hisu said. Our remaining fleet is trying to hold back a swarm attack wave. We cannot just fly into the middle of that. You cannot, Young-ho agreed. We can. They materialized again, this time on the bridge of Hisu's flagship. The crew shouted in alarm. Weapons were drawn. Daehyun ignored all of it. Take us toward the enemy, he ordered. Full speed. You cannot give orders on my ship, Hisu snapped. Daehyun turned to face her fully. Commander, you have 63 ships left. The enemy has thousands. Your weapons are designed for civilized warfare against opponents who follow rules. The swarm does not follow rules. You are going to die in the next 6 hours. Unless you let us work, the bridge fell silent. Hisu's jaw tightened. Helm, take us toward the engagement zone. The flagship accelerated. Behind them, the human warship Endless Vigil followed. It moved with frightening speed for something so massive. As they approached the battle, Ji-won saw the scope of their failure. Confederation ships were dying. The swarm bioships tore through hulls like paper, spilling crew into vacuum. Analysis complete, Sumin said, staring at a tactical display. The swarm uses hive intelligence. Individual ships have limited autonomy. They coordinate through bioelectric signals, short-range, vulnerable to disruption. They are also adapting, Young-ho added. See how they changed formation after your last missile volley? They learn from every engagement. Fast learners. Daehyun nodded. Standard predator evolution. Kill the weak, learn from survivors, good. That means they can feel fear. What are you talking about? Ji-won asked. How do you make insects feel fear? You show them something that kills them faster than they can adapt. Daehyun touched a device on his wrist. Vigil. Execute Pattern Massacre 7. The human warship opened fire. Ji-won had seen weapons fire before. Missiles. Particle beams. Kinetic slugs. This was different. The Endless Vigil did not fire weapons. It fired concepts. Space itself seemed to tear open. Swarm bioships did not explode. They stopped existing. Entire formations vanished into nothing. What is that? Minho whispered. Weapons we developed fighting enemies worse than your swarm, Suman said without emotion. Much worse. The battle shifted in seconds. The swarm bioships tried to adapt, tried to scatter, but the human ship anticipated every move. It was not fighting. It was executing. Clinical. Perfect. Horrible. When the last swarm ship died, Daehyun turned to Hisu. That was a small attack wave. Where is the main force? Hisu pulled up a star chart with shaking hands. Here, they have occupied 17 systems. Billions of swarm drones. Hundreds of capital ships. This is what remains of the Confederation. She gestured at the small pocket of free space. Daehyun studied the map for 3 seconds. Suman, tactical assessment. We need more ships, Suman said. Calling in the Third Fleet. The Third Fleet is engaged in the Outer Terminus campaigns, Young-ho noted. Pull them out. This is more important. Ji-won stared at them. You have other fleets? Other ships like the Endless Vigil? We have 18 fleet groups, Daehyun said. Each group has between 50 and 200 ships. Most are currently engaged in our own wars. Your own wars? Hisu asked. Against who? Does it matter? Daehyun looked at the star chart. You have a swarm problem. We have solved swarm problems before. Different species, same concept. Mindless consumption. They are not creative. That makes them predictable. Over the next hour, more human ships arrived. Not through normal hyperspace. They just appeared one by one, materializing into reality like nightmares made solid. Each ship was different. Each bore scars. Each looked like it had been at war since before most species learned to use fire. Ji-won watched from the observation deck as the human fleet assembled. 50 ships, then 70, then 90. Each one was huge. Each one radiated threat like heat from a star. How long have you been fighting? She asked quietly. Young-ho stood beside her. He was gentler than the others, or perhaps just less cold. Me personally? 41 years. I was born on a ship during the Machine Purge. Never set foot on a planet. The Machine Purge? War against rogue artificial intelligence. Lasted 60 years. Before that was the genetic schism. Before that was the reality fracture. Before that was something else. There is always something else. He paused. Your people spent 3,000 years building civilization. My people spent 3,000 years fighting everything that wanted to end civilization. You wonder why we are different? That is why. Were you always like this? Ji-won asked. No. Young-ho's voice held something that might have been sadness. Once we were probably like you. Hopeful. Kind. Then the first war came. Then the second. Then they stopped ending. After a while, you stop asking when peace will come. You just focus on surviving until morning. On the command deck, Daehyun was briefing the human fleet commanders via hologram. Dozens of faces, all hard, all tired. All carrying the weight of wars Ji-won could not imagine. The swarm has occupied 17 systems, Daehyun explained. Standard strategy would be defensive consolidation. We are not going to do that. We are going to hit them everywhere at once. Simultaneous assault on 17 systems? One commander asked. That spreads us thin. It spreads them thinner. They rely on mass and adaptation. We do not give them time to mass or adapt. Strike hard, strike fast, move to the next target. We make them chase us across 17 systems until they are scattered and confused. Then we kill them all. Suman pulled up tactical projections. Estimated timeline, 11 days to complete extermination. Estimated casualties, acceptable. Ji-won looked at Hisu. The commander's face had gone pale. You are going to exterminate the swarm? In 11 days? Yes, Daehyun said simply. The swarm has never been defeated in recorded history. You never had us before. The first planet died on the second day. Not conquered. Not invaded. Died. Ji-won watched it happen from the Endless Vigil's command center. Daehyun had allowed her and a small Confederation team aboard to observe the operation. She was starting to wish he had not. Target world, Ceres 4, Suman reported. Swarm occupation confirmed. Estimated 10 billion drones, 3 capital bioships in orbit. Significant nest infrastructure on surface. Survivors? Hisu asked. 2 million Confederation citizens trapped in underground shelters, Suman said. Scattered across 6 locations. Hope flickered in Hisu's eyes. Can we evacuate them? No time, Daehyun said. The swarm is reinforcing this system. We have a 4-hour window before overwhelming force arrives. Hyung-ho, deploy the planet crackers. Wait, Jiwon said. Planet crackers? There are 2 million people down there. There are 2 million people who are already dead, Daehyun corrected. The swarm has them surrounded. We can save some or kill many. We choose kill many. That is murder. Daehyun looked at her. His eyes were not cruel. They were empty. Yes, it is. War is murder at scale. You wanted us to win. This is what winning costs. Young-ho initiated the launch sequence. Jiwon watched in horror as the endless vigil deployed 6 massive devices towards Ceres 4. They fell through the atmosphere like meteors of purpose. What will those do? Minho asked quietly. They will burrow to the planet's mantle, Young-ho explained. Then they will destabilize the tectonic structure. The planet will tear itself apart from the inside. Estimated destruction time 6 hours. Complete sterilization of all swarm presence. And the survivors? Gone, Young-ho said. Like I said, I was born on a ship. Planets are just weapons waiting to be used. Hisu's voice shook with rage. You could send ground forces. Extract the civilians. Fight to save them. We could, Suman agreed. It would take 3 days. Use significant resources. Result in heavy casualties among our forces. And while we do that, the swarm reinforces 6 other systems. The math is simple. 2 million lives or 2 billion lives. We choose 2 billion, Jiwon felt sick. How can you be so cold? Practice, Daehyun said. He was already moving to the next tactical display. Suman, status on Velen system. Ground forces report successful insertion. Commander Borum has secured 3 of 4 population centers. Tell Borum to accelerate the timeline. We need Velon cleared in 2 days, not 3. Jiwon found herself on a transport ship hours later, heading to the surface of Velon 2. Daehyun had offered her the chance to see ground operations. She had accepted because she needed to understand what humanity had become. Commander Borum met them at the landing zone. She was smaller than Jiwon expected, with sharp eyes and movements that wasted no energy. Around her, human soldiers moved through the ruins of a Confederation city with mechanical efficiency. Ambassador Jiwon, Borum said. Captain Daehyun mentioned you wanted to observe recovery operations. Recovery? Jiwon looked at the burning buildings, the bodies being loaded onto transport shuttles. This looks like slaughter. It is both. Borum gestured for them to follow. The swarm occupied this city for 3 weeks. They use living hosts for reproduction. Everyone you see being evacuated is either already infested or will be soon. We are removing them before they become breeding stock. They walked through a medical station. Doctors worked frantically on patients who screamed. Some were human doctors. Most were human medical machines working with speed that looked violent. Can you save them? Hisu asked. Some, Borum said. Maybe 30%. The rest are too far gone. Swarm genetic material has already integrated with their nervous systems. Best we can do is euthanize them quickly. Jiwon stopped walking. Euthanize? You are going to kill them? Yes, it is mercy. Borum pulled up a holographic display showing a patient's brain scan. The image made Jiwon's stomach turn. Something that was not brain tissue had grown through the neural matter like roots through soil. This person is already dead. Their body just does not know it yet. We can let them die slowly over weeks in agony, while the swarm uses them to spawn more drones. Or we can end it now. What would you choose? Jiwon had no answer. They moved to the command post. Borum pulled up a tactical map of the city. We have cleared sectors 1 through 7. Sectors 8 through 12 still have heavy swarm presence. Standard protocol would be systematic clearance, street by street, building by building. That is not what you are going to do, Hisu said. It was not a question. No, too slow. Borum highlighted the remaining sectors. We are going to trigger a controlled firestorm. Burn everything. The heat will kill the swarm nests and sterilize the area. What about survivors in those sectors? Jiwon asked. There are no survivors, Borum said. We checked. Anyone still alive in those sectors is already infested. This is faster, cleaner. Jiwon felt rage rising in her chest. You are burning people alive. Borum looked at her with something that might have been pity. Ambassador, I have burned 17 worlds. I have orbital bombarded 12 more. I have deployed biological weapons that made plagues look like mercy. I have done all of this because the alternative is extinction. Not just defeat, extinction. You called us because you were dying. We came because we know how to kill. If you wanted heroes, you should have called someone else. The firestorm began an hour later. Jiwon watched from the transport ship as fire swallowed 5 city sectors. The flames burned so hot that metal melted. Nothing could survive that inferno. Not swarm, not people, nothing. Minho stood beside her, his face pale. They are efficient. I will give them that. Efficient, Jiwan repeated. The word tasted like ash. Over the next week, Jiwan watched humanity wage war. She saw orbital bombardments that cracked continents. She saw bioweapons that dissolved swarm nests in everything within 5 kilometers. She saw machines that hunted with perfect precision, killing anything marked as enemy without hesitation or mercy. She also saw humanity save people when they could, when the math allowed it. On Karis 9, human soldiers extracted 400,000 civilians from a swarm-occupied arcology. They did it in 6 hours, fighting through endless waves of drones with weapons that seemed to unmake reality. Not one human soldier died. 3,000 civilians died. Acceptable losses, Borum had said. On Thenis Station, human ships destroyed a swarm breeding facility, moments before it could release 100 million new drones into the sector. The facility was attached to a civilian station. 12,000 people died when the breeding facility exploded. 12,000 to save 12 million. Acceptable losses. Jiwan started to understand. This was not cruelty. This was math. Horrible, efficient math calculated by people who had been forced to make these choices so many times that they had become automatic. On the 8th day, she found herself in a quiet observation room aboard the Endless Vigil. Young-Ho was there. Reviewing damage reports, how do you live with it? Jiwan asked. The choices you make. The people you kill. Young-Ho looked up from his work. We do not live with it. We survive with it. There is a difference. I do not understand. Living requires hope, requires believing tomorrow will be better. We stopped believing that a long time ago. Young-Ho pulled up an image. It showed a beautiful planet, green and blue. This was Terra 9. Human colony world, population 4 billion. It was destroyed in the Third Machine War, not damaged. Destroyed. The entire crust was stripped away. We built monuments to remember the dead. Do you know how many monuments humanity has built in the last 3,000 years? How many? 6,412. One for every world we lost. Every extinction event. Every war that killed billions. Young-Ho closed the image. We do not live with our choices, Ambassador. We are haunted by them. But we keep fighting because the alternative is adding another monument to that list. On the 10th day, Jiwan was present when Daehyun briefed the fleet commanders. Swarm forces are scattered across 11 remaining systems, he reported. They are trying to regroup at their hive world. We are going to let them. Let them? One commander asked. Yes, when they consolidate, we hit them with everything. One battle. Total extermination. Daehyun pulled up an image of a massive organic structure in space. This is the Swarm Queen's hive. When we destroy her, the entire swarm loses coordination. They become easy targets, Suman added tactical data. Estimated enemy strength at hive world overwhelming. Estimated probability of victory 73%. 73%? Hisu said. Those are not good odds. They are excellent odds, Daehyun corrected. We have fought it worse. The third reality fracture had 12% survival probability. The Gene Plague Wars had 8%. We won both. How? Jiwan asked. Because we do not fight to survive. We fight to win. There is a difference. Daehyun looked at the assembled commanders. Prepare your ships. We move on the hive world in 6 hours. Final battle. Final extermination. The human fleet began to assemble. 96 ships, each one ancient and scarred and utterly lethal. They hung in space like a promise of violence. Jiwan stood on the observation deck and watched them prepare. Beside her, Hayusu was silent for a long time. They are going to win, the commander finally said. They are actually going to destroy the swarm. Yes, Jiwan agreed, and then what? Jiwan thought about Daehyun's empty eyes. About Borum's mechanical efficiency. The Swarm Queen's hive world hung in space like a tumor. It was not a planet anymore. The swarm had consumed the original world and rebuilt it into something else. Organic structures sprawled across the surface, pulsing with bioluminescence. In orbit, thousands of bioships swarmed in defensive patterns. That is where we are going, Minho whispered. That is where we end this, Daehyun replied. The human fleet had positioned itself at the edge of the system. 96 warships against an enemy that numbered in the thousands. By any reasonable calculation, they should retreat. Humanity did not do reasonable. Ji-won had spent the last 3 days studying the humans, really studying them. She watched how they moved, how they talked, how they prepared for battle with the casual efficiency of people who had done this 1,000 times before. She noticed things. Small things. The way Daehyun's hands shook slightly when he thought no one was watching. The way Sumin sometimes stared at nothing for minutes at a time. The way Young-ho collected small trinkets from each world they visited, keeping them in a box he never opened. They were not machines. They were broken people pretending to be machines because it hurt less. "Ambassador, you should move to a secure location," Borum suggested. "This battle will be intense." "I am staying here," Ji-won said. "I need to see this." The human fleet moved forward. They did not charge. They did not hesitate. They simply moved with the inevitability of a falling star. The swarm responded immediately. Thousands of bioships surged toward them, the space between the fleets filled with weapons fire, organic missiles, and death. Ji-won watched as human ships opened fire with weapons she still did not understand. Reality seemed to tear. Space folded. Swarm bioships did not just die. They ceased to exist, erased from the universe like mistakes. But there were so many. For every bioship destroyed, 3 more took its place. The swarm pushed forward through sheer mass, accepting horrific losses to close the distance. "They are adapting," Sumin noted calmly. "See how they changed formation? They are learning to avoid our gravitational weapons." "Deploy counter-adaptation protocols," Daehyun ordered. The human ships shifted tactics. New weapons emerged. Different strategies. The swarm adapted again. The humans adapted faster. It was like watching 2 master players move pieces on a board made of fire and death. Human ship Relentless just took critical damage. A tactical officer reported. "They are venting atmosphere." "Relentless, fall back," Daehyun commanded. "Negative," came the reply. A woman's voice, calm despite the sound of explosions in the background. "We still have weapons. We still fight." The damaged ship accelerated forward instead of retreating. It plowed into a cluster of swarm bioships and detonated its power core. The explosion vaporized everything within 100 kilometers. Ji-won felt sick. "They just killed themselves." "They just killed 300 enemy ships," Young-ho corrected. "Good trade. Good trade?" "They died." "We all die, Ambassador. Question is whether we die for something." Young-ho pulled up casualty reports. Relentless had a crew of 800. They killed approximately 50,000 swarm drones with their sacrifice. Those drones would have killed millions more. Mathematics. The battle raged for hours. Human ships fought with cold precision. The swarm fought with mindless fury. Slowly, impossibly, the humans began to win. "We have achieved breakthrough," Sumin reported. "Path to Hive World is clear." "All ships, final assault," Daehyun ordered. "Target the Queen." The human fleet drove toward the Hive World like a spear. Swarm bioships tried to stop them. Failed. Died. The humans reached orbit and opened fire on the planet below. Ji-won had seen bombardments before. This was different. This was not destruction. This was extermination. Weapons fell from orbit in streams of light. Each impact carved craters kilometers wide. The organic structures on the surface burned, melted, dissolved. "Detecting massive biosignature," Minho said. "It is the Queen. She is enormous. Bigger than a city." The Swarm Queen emerged from the planet's core. She was grotesque and beautiful. A creature of pure evolution, adapted for one purpose: consumption. She was surrounded by thousands of guardian drones, all willing to die protecting her. "Deploy the World Enders," Daehyun said. "Captain, are you certain?" Even Sumin hesitated. "World Enders are banned by 73 galactic treaties. We are not part of any galactic treaty." "Deploy them." Ji-won grabbed Daehyun's arm. "What are World Enders?" He looked at her, and for a moment she saw something in his eyes. Not anger. Not coldness. Sadness. Deep ancient sadness. "Weapons we created during the reality fracture," he said quietly. "Weapons that break more than flesh. They break the fundamental structure of space-time itself. We banned ourselves from using them after the fracture ended. We swore we would never deploy them again. But we kept them, just in case. And now? Now we use them. Because your people deserve to survive, even if we have to damn ourselves to save you." The World Enders launched. They were small, insignificant looking. They fell toward the Swarm Queen like raindrops. When they detonated, reality screamed. Ji-won could not describe what she saw. Space folded in on itself. Time stuttered. The Swarm Queen did not die. She simply stopped existing, along with everything within 1,000 kilometers. The planet below cracked. Atmosphere burned away. What remained was a dead rock floating in space. Swarm Queen eliminated, Suman reported. Her voice was hollow. All swarm bioships showing coordination failure. They are scattering. Hunt them down, Daehyun ordered. All of them. Leave nothing. The human fleet spread across the system. For the next 6 hours, they methodically destroyed every remaining swarm organism. No mercy, no prisoners. Complete extinction. When it was over, Ji-won stood in the command center and tried to process what she had witnessed. The swarm was gone. The enemy that had destroyed half the Confederation in a month had been exterminated in 11 days. We won, Hisu said. She sounded surprised. Yes, Daehyun replied. You won. Now you have to live with how you won. 3 days later, Ji-won found herself in a small observation room with a human she had not met before. His name was Sung-hoon, and he was listed as a fleet psychologist. She did not know humanity had such things. You have questions, Sung-hoon said. He was older than the others, with gray in his hair and deep lines around his eyes. Everyone does after they see us fight. How can you live like this? Ji-won asked. How can you be so efficient at killing? Sung-hoon was quiet for a moment. Your people spent 10,000 years building a civilization based on hope and cooperation. Beautiful. Fragile. My people spent 3,000 years in a meat grinder where species went extinct daily. We became what we had to become to survive. You called us for help. You got survivors. Survivors are not heroes, but you saved us. We eliminated a threat. Different motivation. Sung-hoon pulled up a holographic display. It showed a long list of names. Billions of names. This is humanity's memorial database. Every human who died in our wars. Every world we lost. Every subspecies that went extinct. We maintain this database because we need to remember what we are fighting for. Not glory. Not honor. Just survival. Ji-won scrolled through the names. They went on forever. So many dead. Yes, and we remember everyone. That is the difference between us and the swarm. The swarm consumes and forgets. We kill and remember. It does not make us good, but it makes us human. Hisu had her own revelation. She spent hours with Suman, studying human tactical doctrine. The tactical officer taught her without emotion, sharing strategies that made Haisu's blood run cold. This is your standard first contact protocol? Hisu asked, staring at a tactical manual. Immediate threat assessment? Weapons lock? Prepare for total warfare? Yes, Suman said. We do not trust anyone. Cannot afford to. Last time we trusted another species without verification, they turned out to be infiltrators for a reality-warping collective. We lost 4 worlds before we realized. Now we trust math, numbers, weapons, not promises. That is paranoid. That is alive. Suman pulled up combat reports. See these engagements? Everyone started because we assumed worst case and prepared accordingly. We have never lost a war we prepared for. We lost wars we entered with hope. Hisu studied the reports. She saw the pattern. Overwhelming force. No hesitation, no mercy. Victory through absolute commitment to violence. You are teaching me how to be monsters, she said quietly. No. I am teaching you how to survive. You want to be heroes? Die heroically. You want to survive? Learn from the species that has survived everything. On the 5th day after the battle, Ji-won requested a meeting with Daehyun. They met in a quiet room aboard the Endless Vigil. Your fleet is preparing to leave, Ji-won said. Yes, our work here is done. Time to return to our own wars. What if we asked you to stay? To help us rebuild? To teach us? Daehyun shook his head. You do not want what we would teach. We would teach you to trust nothing. To see threats everywhere. To calculate the value of life in numbers and trade millions for billions without blinking. Is that what you want for your people? I want us to survive, you will survive. You beat the swarm, that buys you time. Use it to rebuild. Use it to prepare, because there will be other threats. Always are. But you can face them your way. With hope, with mercy, with civilization. Daehyun looked tired. We lost those things a long time ago. Do not lose them too. Ji-won felt tears forming. I watched you fight. Talos Prime was burning again. But this time the fires were controlled. Celebration fires. Victory fires. The Confederation had survived. Jiwon stood on a newly rebuilt platform overlooking the capital city. Around her, crowds celebrated. Music played. People danced in streets that had been battlefields weeks ago. The nightmare was over. They had won. Except Jiwon could not stop thinking about the cost. "You should be celebrating," Hisu said, joining her on the platform. The commander looked different now. Harder. Her eyes had the same distant quality Jiwon had seen in the human soldiers. "Should I?" Jiwon asked. "We won because we called monsters to fight monsters. What does that make us?" "Alive." Hisu looked at the crowds below. "I spoke with Suman before the human fleet prepared to leave. She gave me copies of their tactical databases, strategies, weapons specifications, everything. She said it was a gift, so we would be ready next time." "Next time? There is always a next time. That is what they taught me. The universe is not kind. Peace is not natural. Safety is something you build with blood and vigilance." Hisu pulled out a data chip. "I am going to use this. Reform our military. Train our soldiers differently. Make sure we never need to call the humans again. By becoming like them. By learning from them." Hayasu met Jiwon's eyes. "You can hate what they are and still respect what they know. Both can be true." The ceremony began at noon. The entire Confederation Council assembled in the Grand Hall. Representatives from every surviving world attended. Even the other galactic civilizations sent observers. Everyone wanted to see the species that had defeated the swarm. Jiwon had invited Captain Daehyun to accept the Confederation's highest honor, the Hall of Heroes Medal, given only to those who save civilization itself. Daehyun came, but he did not come alone. The entire human command staff materialized in the Grand Hall. Daehyun, Sumin, Youngho, Boram, Sunghun, all of them wearing clean uniforms instead of battle armor. All of them looking uncomfortable in a room designed for celebration instead of war. The Confederation Chancellor began the ceremony. She spoke of darkness and despair, of the swarm's unstoppable advance, of the desperate message sent into the void, of the answer that came from the dead sector. "Today we honor humanity," the Chancellor declared, "the species that came when no one else would. The warriors who stood between us and extinction. Please, Captain Daehyun, accept this medal on behalf of your people." The crowd erupted in applause. Daehyun walked to the podium slowly. He looked at the medal being offered. Then he looked at Jiwon. "I cannot accept this," he said quietly. The hall fell silent. "What?" the Chancellor asked. "I cannot accept this honor," Daehyun repeated, his voice carrying across the silent hall. "We did not fight for you. We fought because a threat that could challenge the Confederation could eventually find its way to the dead sector. This was not rescue. This was preventative maintenance." Jiwon felt her stomach drop. Around the hall, representatives whispered in shock. "But you saved billions," the Chancellor protested. "You destroyed the swarm. Yes, we also killed millions. We burned worlds. We deployed weapons that should never exist. We committed what you would call war crimes daily for 11 days. Daehyun looked at the assembled crowd. "You want to give us medals? Fine. But know what you are celebrating. You are celebrating efficient brutality, calculated murder, the willingness to trade any cost for victory. Is that what you want to honor?" The hall remained silent, uncomfortable. Jiwon saw it in their faces. The cognitive dissonance, the need to see humanity as heroes clashing with the reality of what humanity had done. "We did what was necessary," Boram said, stepping forward. "Nothing more, nothing less. You called us. We answered. The enemy is dead. That is all that matters, is it?" A voice called from the crowd. A young representative from one of the devastated worlds. "My planet was Ceres 4, you destroyed it. Killed everyone, including my family. How is that heroic?" "It is not," Youngho said simply. "It was tactical. Your world was lost, occupied. Using it as a weapon killed more swarm than any evacuation would have saved. We chose the option that saved the most lives across all worlds. Your family was part of the acceptable losses." The young representative looked like he had been struck. "Acceptable losses?" "Yes." Youngho's voice held no apology. "War is math. Terrible math. We calculated that destroying your world would save 20 worlds like it. The math was correct. We would make the same choice again." The hall erupted in angry voices, some defending humanity, some condemning them. Jiwon watched Daehyun stand calm in the center of the storm. He did not try to defend himself, did not explain further. He just waited. The Chancellor called for silence. When the hall quieted, she looked at Dae-hyun. If you will not accept our honor, what will you accept? Nothing. We want nothing from you. Dae-hyun gestured to his officers. We are leaving. Returning to the dead sector. Our own wars are waiting. Wait, Ji-won called out. She walked onto the stage, standing beside Dae-hyun. Stay, please, join the Confederation. You do not have to fight alone anymore. We can help you heal. Give you the peace you lost. For the first time since she had met him, Ji-won saw real emotion on Dae-hyun's face. Not anger. Not coldness. Sadness so deep it seemed to have no bottom. Ambassador Ji-won, he said softly, we are what 3,000 years of total war creates. You cannot heal us. We are not broken. We are adapted. This is what we are now. We can never live in your peace. We can only protect it from the outside. Why? Ji-won felt tears forming. Why can you not stay? Sung-hoon stepped forward. The psychologist looked at Ji-won with gentle eyes. Because we would poison your civilization. We see threats everywhere. We trust nothing. We calculate the value of life in numbers. You invite us to stay. And within a generation we would turn your beautiful, hopeful society into another dead sector. It happened before. Early in our wars. Some human factions tried to hold on to peace. They taught their children hope and mercy. Those children died. The factions that survived taught their children suspicion and ruthlessness. Evolution does not care about morals. Only survival. Then the swarm won, Ji-won said bitterly. They destroyed you without even fighting you. They turned you into weapons, into things. No, Sumin said. Her voice was cold, but there was something underneath. The swarm destroyed us. That is true. But we destroyed them back. Completely. Totally. They are extinct. We still exist. That is victory. Not glorious. Not clean. But victory, Minho spoke up from the crowd. Will you at least tell us about your wars? What you are fighting? Maybe we can help. The human officers exchanged glances. Young-ho laughed. It was a bitter sound. You want to know about our wars? Right now, the Third Fleet is fighting a reality-warping collective that exists in 11 dimensions at once. The Seventh Fleet is purging a machine intelligence that turns entire planets into computation substrate. The 15th Fleet is containing a genetic plague that rewrites DNA as it spreads, and those are just the current threats. There are always more. You cannot help with any of that. You are not built for it. We could learn, Hayasu said. You could try, Boram agreed. But do you want to? Really? Look at us. We are effective. But we are not happy. We are not whole. We are survivors, and survival is not the same as living. Keep your civilization the way it is. Soft, hopeful, kind. The galaxy needs that more than it needs more warriors. The ceremony ended without celebration. The humans left the Grand Hall and returned to their ships. Ji-won followed them to the orbital platform where the endless vigil waited. I am sorry, she said to Dae-hyun. I am sorry we called you. Sorry we reminded you of what you lost. Do not be sorry for surviving. Dae-hyun looked at Talus Prime below. Your world is beautiful. Your people are alive. That is worth the cost we paid. What was the cost? Remembering. For a few weeks we remembered what we were fighting for. Not just survival, but this. Civilization, hope, peace. We remembered, and it hurt. Dae-hyun smiled sadly. But pain means you are still human, still capable of caring. That is worth something. The other human officers boarded their ships. Sumin gave Haisu a brief nod. Young-ho handed Min-ho a small box. Memorial tokens, he explained. From the worlds we saved. Remember us by what we protected, not by what we destroyed. Boram stopped in front of Ji-won. You will face other threats, smaller than the swarm probably, but still dangerous. Use what you learned. Be prepared. Be ruthless when you must. But never lose your hope. That is the line between us and monsters. Are you not both? Ji-won asked. Warriors and monsters? Yes, we are. Hold both truths. Boram turned and walked to her ship. Sung-hoon was the last to board. Ambassador, may I give you advice? Please. In the coming years, your people will debate what happened here. Some will see us as heroes, some as villains. Let them debate. Let them struggle with the moral complexity. That struggle is how civilization stays civilized. The day you stop questioning the cost of victory is the day you become us. The human fleet prepared to depart. 93 ships. 3 had been lost in the battle. Acceptable losses, they had called it. Ji-won wondered if they mourned those losses or simply added them to the endless list of acceptable costs. A final message came from the endless vigil. Daehyun's voice filled the platform. Confederation, you survived. You will rebuild. You will remember this as the time you beat the swarm.